So why do men feel so entitled to have and take whatever they want from women? You may ask. The answer to this question is not a simple one, as there are many factors that contribute to this issue. The concept of male entitlement is not new either. Men have been entitled to more rights than women for millennia on this planet. Men have had the right to take what they want from women, possibly since the beginning of time itself. A practice that, even to this day, continues throughout the world, in many various forms, overtly or covertly. And there are many examples of these entitlement. But here, we shall mention just 3 of the most obvious examples of men's entitlement over women and how the result and consequences of this attitude has affected the lives of women around the world. The first example is their entitlement over women's time, which has led to many of the double standard issues women have had to deal with in every single area of their lives, from birth to death. Be it privately, publicly, or professionally. The second example is their entitlement over women's bodies, which has led to non-consensual intercourse and marriages. And a lot of those practices carry on to this day, under the cover of tradition. The third example is their entitlement over women's financial resources, which they always acquire, through targeted deception or smear campaign, as well as through murder. A practice that consists of simultaneously isolating women, while manipulating other people's perception about the victims, with accurate, efficient and devastating results. So why do men have this much power and control over women? And the most obvious reason is simply because the world is a giant patriarchal social experiment. Societies are made of both genders, and the masses elect special people to represent them, all the way to the top positions of power, within the government, where all the laws are created and reinforced. Even using the biggest magnifying glass, a visiting, giant alien would have had a hard time finding women in those institutions, in our most common recent past. Not until recently, women have been able to work in those places. Which means many of the laws we currently live under were created, voted upon, and implemented without any input from women. Not even on laws that were directly concerning them. Leaving only one gender to make all the decisions, and only from their perspectives, causing many issues everywhere. A perspective that is narrow. A perspective that is incomplete, and leaves no space for dual co-creation, beyond the ritual of procreation. Women have been forced, instead, into a third-class citizenship role on this planet. Throughout history, men have systematically been making decisions that only concerns them, and only benefit a male-orientated agenda. Just look at what is going on in Ukraine. It's all ego-based. And men have been reinforcing their narrow-mindedness through a well-designed, subliminal propaganda campaign. And just like we've all been taught at school that, even if there is only one male amongst a group of 100 females, the group should be seen as male. We all have been indoctrinated from infancy to think in this manner. And therefore, in government, regardless of whether women are now being represented or not, the majority, which is male, will always have the most sway in the final decision. And this is just one of the major factors that contributes to male entitlement. So, if men have been the only ones in those positions of power since the beginning of time, and are still vastly and predominantly in those same positions of power, from big cities to rural environments, why wouldn't they feel entitled and confident in a system created by them for them, and maintained by a group of people who think and act like themselves, have the exact same urges and needs? The concept of male entitlement is not new. Men have been entitled to more rights than women for centuries. They are entitled to more pay, more power, and even the right to take what they want from women, because we all live in a male-dominated society, and are governed by their patriarchal rules. Patriarchal norms are so ingrained in our subconscious, that a lot of us women suffer from internalized misogyny, without knowing it. This is when women subconsciously project sexist ideas onto other women and even onto themselves. This is also when women become the hound dogs or flying monkeys, ready to reinforce the misogynistic rules of the patriarchy. So, there tend to be a lot victims have to deal with, from both sides of the community, when dealing with the negative side effects of men entitlement. Toxic masculinity is another reason fueling men act of entitlement. A lot of women are unaware that men all over the world strongly believe that they are superior to women. And the worst part is that, not only do they believe that women owe them, and they also believe women should feel grateful to get any kind of male attention. And this is what constitutes a big part of toxic masculinity. Like sending unsolicited eggplant pictures. You see, the patriarchal system since the beginning has always encouraged men to learn how to exert pressure, display aggressivity and exercise physical violence to obtain what they want, in order to prove their dominance, virility, and as well as to obtain respect from other men. And men have always been praised and rewarded for taking what does not belong to them, all over the world. This system is deeply rooted in our common and global civilization. And the common results of this is that, while men are rewarded for their brutal behaviors and actions, victims are shamed, gaslighted, often ostracized and considered weak. Even if this can be easily understood, many will still fail to connect with the reality that most of those victims are females. Yes, the most conquered, taken advantage of, and enslaved in this planet are women. All perpetrated through the clever games of seduction and the pretense of wanting to create a family. Many can't connect the dots because the key words used have different associated images produced by the brain when mentioned, and those images don't correspond to our immediate points of references, especially when we are young. In the past few years, we have seen a lot of public outcries over sexual assault and harassment. And the most recent example of these are Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein. Both of those men were highly influential and trusted, and they've used their position of power and trust to forcibly take advantage of many women in their environment. So between self-entitlement attitudes, physical expressions of toxic masculinity, it is not difficult to see how easily these bleeds into the territory of narcissism. And men are most predominantly affected with this pathology. This pathology manifests itself through lack of compassion, inability to self-reflect, uncanny ability to manipulate others' perception of themselves and reality. And it's all done just to gain power, influence and financial gain, at the cost of everyone around them and society at large. Again, just look at what is happening in Ukraine. Narcissists are equal opportunist offenders, they don't discriminate, contrary to the belief that they only target weak, stupid and vulnerable people. Another reason men feel entitled to take whatever they want from women and feel entitled of women time is because of their status as breadwinners and their positions as heads of the household, which only encourages them to develop irrational and delusional expectations towards all women. As usual, the patriarchy has hijacked a natural biological system to cleverly imprison women, just to benefit themselves and provide themselves with a reason to exist. And just like we are seeing the decline of the churches and religion, men have a hard time letting go of power and moving with the times. That's why many men fantasize of time past. A time when their own mothers and daughters would have had no right. A time where they could be their authentic barbarian true selves. Isn't that weird that men's biggest fantasies are to have even more control over women? If any of you have an explanation for this insatiable lust for dominion, please share. It is because of all of this that I urge women to consider very carefully the decision to getting involved with, or getting married to men. All of us, if not most of us, have dealt with men, thinking that going on a date, accepting a gift, accepting a ride, accepting an invitation to a secluded place, is the same as agreeing to violent intercourse. The plain truth is, this is just how their minds work. Once women can digest that awful truth, it will no longer be hard to understand that getting into a relationship with men or marrying them, especially if one wants to stay home, that is no longer the smartest or even safest decision for any women these days. Even in the best case scenario, there are enough evidence showing how such expectations are very detrimental to women's ability to self-fulfill, achieve true and long-lasting harmony. Please feel free to let me know what your thoughts are in all of this. Don't forget to share and subscribe. Stay safe and adieu, for now.